we had a little Boston bulldog named Buster. And every night at 11 o'clock for some reason or another, for the longest time, Dad would say, Buster, it's time to go to bed. And this Buster would run upstairs, that little Boston bulldog, pull out a pillow out of the closet and circle around in it, and he'd go to sleep. Then finally, Dad got an idea, and he pulled out his watch at 11 o'clock. He said, Buster, and he said, it's 11 o'clock, get upstairs and go to bed. So he did that for a while, until finally all he had to say was, Buster, and Buster would come look at the watch and go to bed. Roy Fisher was over home, and he said, Roy, do you know that's the smartest dog that ever lived? He said, what are you talking about? He said, he can tell time. 11 o'clock came, Dad reached him and said, Roy, see that? He said, yeah. He said, Buster? And Buster came running across the kitchen, looked at the watch, turned kind of shy like that, turned around, went upstairs, and went to bed. And that's not all that dog does, and I'll show you that later, some other time. He said, what's that? He said, he also talks. Now, Roy Fisher said, oh, well, I know about that. Now, Dad didn't know where to go from there, And he says, well, how'd you happen to know about that? He said, my dog came home this morning and told me.
Good morning. It's Thursday, Jordan Peterson Thursday, January the 8th, and this is The True Conservative. Welcome to all the butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers out there. I'm Ron, your host, and the only true conservative in the United States today. So today, after the Serenity Prayer and the patriotic song of the day, we will have Varney and Company, motivation, meditation, and Jordan Peterson. All that and more when I get back. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I should not change, the courage to change the things I should, and the wisdom to know the difference. Amen. Thank you. Now, Varney and Company.
See you tomorrow. Varney and Company picks it up. Stu, take it away.
Good morning, Maria. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the command economy. The president tells big business what they can do and what they can't do. Corporations, he wants corporations to stop buying single-family homes. He wants to make it easier for the little guy to buy a house. He wants defense companies to limit the dividends they pay and stop with the stock buybacks. When that news was announced, defense stocks went down. Then we heard the president wants a $500 billion increase in the defense budget. That did the trick. Now those defense stocks are rallying. The rest of the market is not. The Dow Industrials and the S&P, they're all down. Red ink across the board. Dow's off 193. Bitcoin dropped below at 90,000 bucks. It's now at 89.8. Gold backing off just a little. You're at $30 lower at 4,432 an ounce. Silver, that's backing off $73 an ounce. It was 83 about a week ago. The oil, $57 a barrel. The president tells the New York Times he is going to be managing Venezuela's oil business for years to come. That means a lot more oil coming onto the world market. Oil at 57. No change for gas, still at $2.81 a gallon. All right, on the show today, demonstrations in Minneapolis overnight following the death of a young woman protesting ICE. Minneapolis schools closed today and tomorrow. The inflammatory language from the left just keeps on coming. Mayor Jacob Fry repeated his obscenity-laced tirade against ICE. AOC says it was murder. Shouldn't be saying that before the investigation is complete. The president's aggressive foreign policy is picking up steam.
Okay, so I want to cut in real quick and say about AOC saying it's murder, and he says shouldn't do it until the investigation is complete. Why does she go ahead and make this claim now before the investigation is complete? Simple, because she knows that once the investigation is complete, whatever conclusion has been drawn, she's going to be stuck with if she waits. If she goes ahead and makes a comment now, it becomes an arbitrary claim. People can either take her word for it or not. Back to Varney.
Colombia's president is feeling the pressure. Trump says Gustavo Petro makes cocaine and sells it in America, and he says they won't be doing that much longer. That is a threat. Petro buckled and called our president himself, called him directly. Result, Petro will be meeting with the president in the Oval Office. Now, there is a turnaround. And I will be detailing my troubles with technology. I'm not alone. A lot of people my age have real problems. My point is that my generation is locked out of many aspects of life because technology is not user-friendly. I've had 2 days of password hell. My blood pressure is rising already. Thursday, it really is. Thursday, January the 8th, 2026.
And that was Varney and Company. Non-profit news now. Back in a minute. Thank you. So this is, we're back to Stu, and he is now having this little segment where he and a guest are discussing the reaction to the death of a protester in Minneapolis yesterday.
Minneapolis, Jacob Fry doubled down on his inflammatory rhetoric last night. Watch this.
I'm so sorry if I offended their Disney princess ears, but here's the thing. If we're talking about what's inflammatory, on the one hand, you got someone who dropped an F-bomb, and on the other hand, you got someone who killed somebody else. F-bomb, killing somebody. I think the more inflammatory action is killing somebody. What they are doing, what ICE is doing, is terrorizing our community. They're tearing apart families. It's a problem, and my ask continues to be that they need to get out.
Charlie Hurt joining me this morning. I don't think you should use language like that before the investigation is finished. What say you?
Okay, so that's the whole point. That's the whole reason that these people are doing this. Him, and then later on we'll hear in a few seconds from AOC, is they're doing this to get ahead of the investigation. As I said yesterday, that they know that if they wait for the investigation to conclude before they make their comments, they're locked in. Okay? They can't say, well, ICE sucks, but let's see what the investigation says. They might end up having to come back and say, if the investigation says it wasn't ICE's fault, that the protester was at fault, and it was a self-defense issue, they might have to eat humble pie. They don't want to have to do that. They also don't want to have to lie. So what they do instead is before the investigation is complete, they come out and start making arbitrary claims. Now, why bother to make the arbitrary claims? Because they believe that reality is fungible, that you can shape and mold reality, that reality is what the majority says it is, and so they're out trying to get out front of this and shape reality. Back to Varney.
Oh, I don't think any serious person would, and he's clearly not a serious person, a fundamentally unserious person, and I would argue has blood on his hands, actually, because the reason that a horribly unfortunate situation, obviously, but the reason, of course, that you have the situation we have is not because you had...
Okay, so he's wrong. This is the guest that Varney has on that is wrong when he says this is a horribly unfortunate situation. This wasn't a matter of luck, of bad luck. It's not like she was walking along a trail and she fell off the edge of a cliff. Somebody is at fault here. Somebody, if she's at fault, if she was attacking an ICE agent, then she got what she deserved. That's all there is to it. Because she is in charge. She decides what to do. Nobody forced her to go out and protest, to do this protest. Nobody forced her to use her vehicle as a weapon. Back to Varney.
Agents doing their job, they have to do their job. They have to enforce the law. That's how it works in a lawful society. The problem is you have somebody like Mayor Fry who is going around talking about how these ICE agents are somehow doing something illegal. No, they are actually enforcing the law that they are required under the Constitution to enforce. But yet you have people like Mayor Fry calling them unlawful fascists and saying that they're breaking the law and encouraging people to interfere with police activity and interfere with them following the Constitution. And then somebody gets hurt, and we're all sad about that.
Yes.
But there's more blood on his hands
listen to this.
than there is on anybody's hands who's trying to enforce the Constitution.
It goes further than this, Charlie. Democrats are accusing the ICE officer of murder. New York City Mayor Zohran Mamdani and Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett also used the word murder. And here's what AOC had to say.
What we saw today was a criminal murder a woman and shoot her in the head while she was trying to escape and flee for her life. And I think what we saw today was a manifestation of every American's worst nightmare, which is their government turning into a tyranny.
This is a disgrace, Charlie. They're just simply fanning the flames, damn it.
Yeah. And she's, of course, leading the mob, and there will be more incidents like this, right. And it will be her fault because she's encouraging people to go out and have a repeat of what we already saw. And again, when you look at the tape, and it's heartbreaking and it's sad, but the fact remains, you have officers enforcing the law, which they are required to do under the Constitution, and it's a difficult job they have to do, and she's encouraging citizens or civilians to interfere with this and get in the middle of that work, and then you wind up in a dangerous situation where somebody gets killed.
So what she's doing is, again, making arbitrary claims. She wants to shape reality so that, because investigators and potential investigators are watching this. They're watching her, they're watching Varney, they're watching CNN, etc. And she wants to put pressure on those investigators to draw the conclusion she wants drawn. It's also a way to poison the jury pool. She wants people that are potential jurors to also have look at this through her eyes and follow her narrative so that if ICE agents go on trial, they will be found guilty. Back in a minute. Well, on with the show.
More blood on her hands and Mayor Fry's hands than there is on anybody else's.
That's still going on in Minneapolis. That's a live shot from there right now. Charlie, thanks very much for joining us.
Okay, there you go. So again, to wrap it up, they are using arbitrary claims. They're not waiting. They don't want to do an investigation, so they're not waiting for an investigation because the results of an investigation will lock them in. Will lock them in. Okay, if the investigation says ICE is good, what are they going to do? They can either lie or they can apologize. So they get ahead of the program now. What can happen is if the investigation comes out and says, well, ICE was operating within the law, then AOC and others can claim that the investigation is tainted or that it is corrupt, that kind of thing. So, but again, this is the use of arbitrary claims. Back in a minute. Now, a little motivation.
And as you continue to work on yourself, you will begin to expand your vision of yourself. You will begin to work towards self-mastery. When you go through these steps, you might appear to be strange around most people. You ignore all those voices and you prioritize you, taking care of you, focusing on you.
You got to focus on your strengths.
You want to make your dream come true, you got to stay focused. Some people rather get even than get ahead. Stay focused on where you want to go.
When you're hungry to win, you spend your time and your energy being a warrior, not a worrier. No, you don't spend time worrying because you want to get in a fight mode.
There's going to be a fight if you would be willing to fight your way through it. If you would be willing to fight your way through this battle, fight your way through cancer, fight your way through that academic struggle, fight your way through divorce, fight your way through it. If you are willing to fight your way through that singing career, fight your way through boxing, fight your way through football, and if you're willing to put up the fight, I'm telling you at the end of the fight is going to come victory. Go into action with your dream and don't avoid where the fights are. Get in the midst of the fight. Get knocked down so you can learn how to fight so you can hold your position. See, most people don't get out in the arena of life because they don't want to fight. Most people don't get out there because they don't want to get knocked down. They don't want to be dropped to their knees. But see, you're going to be dropped whether you're on the field or whether or not you're sitting on the sidelines. You're going to be dropped. So at least get dropped for something. Don't get knocked down while you're sitting down. Most people are spectators in life. You don't want to be a spectator. You want to get out in the field where the action is. And you will be amazed. After the struggle, there will be a calm period and things will begin to click for you. Come out here with what you got. You don't have enough money? Don't worry about it. You got the dream. You don't have enough resources? Don't worry about it. You got the idea. You get out here in the arena, someone will look at you and become inspired and say, hey, can I help you? But if you're sitting up on the bleachers, nobody's going to ask you anything. Cowards die many times before their deaths. The valiant never taste of death but once. What does that mean? The valiant people aren't afraid? No. It means that they experience that fear and they move forward. It's going to take everything in you that your life deserves the concentrated effort to begin to look at how is it that I can express more of me? How is it that I can bring my ideas out here now and start living with a sense of urgency? Because you're here today, you're gone today. Life is unpredictable. It's uncertain. There are no guarantees out here at all. So holding back, what are you waiting on? Ask yourself, what's the benefit of your waiting? What's the benefit of your not living your dream? What's the benefit of not listening to yourself? Oh, please, listen to yourself. Look at your game plan. Look at your strategy. How is it that you have been being? See, you're the director. You're the producer. You're writing the script. You're the star of your life. And as you begin to look at your life, you can decide whether or not it's a smash or whether or not it's a flop. That's in your hands. Look at your life. Look at where you want to go. Don't worry about your circumstances. Don't worry about your age. You've got to start saying yes to your life. You've got to start saying yes to your dreams. Yes to your unfolding future. Yes to your potential. Why not? Why not me? Don't spend time like most people going through life complaining. It doesn't matter what happens to you. The only thing matters, what are you going to do about it? Use that energy to get up from there and move on and get on with your life. Whatever you've done in the past, that's not a reflection of your possibilities. That's just a reflection of your consciousness. That's just a reflection of your development and your growth. The future is unfolding for you right now. The future is unlimited for you right now. No one knows where you can go. No one knows what you're capable of or what's possible for you. You don't even know that. Take the leap. See, it's out here in the universe. Take the plunge. Go into action. And ladies and gentlemen, you will be surprised at how things will come together. Because the only way that you can grow, you've got to risk. The only way that you can become your best, you have got to risk. You got to challenge yourself. You've got to venture into the unknown. You got to take some chances. Got to put you on the line. So in order to have that sense of fulfillment, getting out of your comfort zone, as you get out of your comfort zone, you expand your
And that was a little bit of motivation. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now a little bit of meditation.
Life is not perfect, but it has perfect moments. Moments that don't ask to be fixed. Moments that don't need improvement. Moments that simply arrive quietly and leave a warmth behind. Today's meditation is an invitation to slow down enough to notice those moments. Not the grand milestones, but the small, gentle experiences that make life meaningful. Allow yourself to settle in now. This time is just for you. Find a comfortable position, sitting or lying down. Let your body be supported. There is nowhere else you need to be. Gently close your eyes if that feels safe for you. Take a slow breath in through your nose and release it softly through your mouth. Again, inhale calm. Exhale any tension you've been holding. With each breath, imagine your body becoming heavier, more relaxed, more at ease. Bring your attention to your natural breathing rhythm. No need to change it. Just observe. Notice how each inhale arrives effortlessly. And each exhale lets go without force. Breath by breath, you're being reminded. Life doesn't have to be controlled to be lived. It unfolds just like this moment. Life is messy, unpredictable, often unfinished. And yet, within the cracks, there are moments of quiet perfection. A laugh you didn't expect. A deep breath after a long day. The comfort of being understood. or simply being still. You don't need a perfect life to experience perfect moments. You only need presence. Imagine yourself walking along a gentle path. The air is calm. The pace is slow. Along this path, you begin to notice small glowing lights, each one representing a perfect moment from your life. A memory. A feeling. A simple joy. You don't analyze them. You don't judge them. You simply acknowledge them. And allow their warmth to fill your chest. With every step, you collect these moments. Realizing they've always been here. Place a hand over your heart. Feel the steady rhythm beneath your palm. Silently repeat. Even in imperfection, there is beauty. Even in uncertainty, there is peace. Even now, this moment is enough. Let gratitude soften you. Not for a perfect life, but for a real one. Take one final deep breath in. And slowly let it go. When you're ready, gently wiggle your fingers and toes. Bring awareness back to your surroundings. As you move forward today, remember, life doesn't need to be perfect to be meaningful. It only asks that you notice the moments that already are. Carry this awareness with you and return to it whenever you need.
Good hair days start with a routine.
And that was a little bit of meditation. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now, Jordan Peterson.
There's this idea in Jungian psychology called the circumambulation. And Jung had this idea that you had a potential future self, which would be in potential everything that you could be. And that it manifests itself moment to moment in your present life by making you interested in things. And the things that you're interested in are the things that would guide you along the path that would lead you to maximal development. Now, it sounds like a metaphysical idea or a mystical idea even, but it's not. It's not. It's a really profoundly biological idea. The idea is something like, well, you're set up so that you're automatically interested in those things that would fully expand you as a well-adapted creature. Well, there's nothing radical about that idea. What else could possibly be the case? Unless there's something fundamentally flawed about you, that is what the situation would be. It's kind of interesting to think about how that would be manifest moment to moment, but the idea is something like, well, your interest is captured by those things that lead you down the path of development. Well, that better be the case. Okay, so that's fine. And so there's some utility in pursuing those things that you're interested in. That's the call to adventure, let's say. And the call to adventure takes you all sorts of places. Now, the problem with the call to adventure is, what the hell do you know? You might be interested in things that are kind of warped and bent. And often it's the case that when new parts of people manifest themselves and grip their interests, say, they do it very badly and shoddily. And so you stumble around like an idiot when you try to do something new. That's why the fool is the precursor to the savior from the symbolic perspectives, because you have to be a fool before you can be a master. And if you're not willing to be a fool, then you can't be a master. So you're going to, it's an error-ridden process. And that's also laid out in the Old Testament stories, because the first thing that happens to all these patriarchal figures when God kicks them out of their father's house when they're 84 is that they run into all sorts of trouble, and some of it's social and some of it's natural and some of it's a consequence of their own moral inadequacy. So they're fools. But the thing that's so interesting is that despite the fact that they're fools, they're still supposed to go on the adventure, and that they're capable of learning enough as a consequence of moving forward on the adventure so that they straighten themselves out across time. And so it's something like this. This circumambulation that Jung talked about was this continual, we'll return to this continual circling in some sense of who you could be. You might notice, for example, that there are themes in your life. When you go back across your experiences, you see you kind of have your typical experience that sort of repeats itself. And there might be variation on it, like a musical theme, but it's like you're circling yourself and getting closer to yourself as you move across time. That's the circumambulation. Across time. That's the circumambulation. Now, you remember that for a sec, because we'll go back to it. Okay, so imagine that something glimmers before you. It's an interest that's dawning, and you decide, well, first of all, you're paralyzed. You think, well, how do I know if I should pursue that? It's probably a stupid idea. And the proper response to that is, you're right, it probably is a stupid idea, because almost all ideas are stupid. And so the probability that as you move forward on your adventure that you're going to get it right the first time is zero. It's just not going to happen. And so then you might think, well, maybe I'll just wait around until I get the right idea, and which people do, right? So they're like 40-year-old, 13-year-olds, which is not a good idea. And so they wait around until it's waiting for Godot, until they finally got it right. But the problem is you're too stupid to know when you've got it right. So waiting around isn't going to help. Because even if the perfect opportunity manifested itself to you in your incomplete form, the probability that you would recognize it as the perfect opportunity is zero. You might even think it's the worst possible idea that you've ever heard of anywhere. Highly likely. Highly likely. So So there's Nietzsche called that a will to stupidity, which I really liked. So because he thought of stupidity as being it's you have to take it into account fundamentally and work with it. And so you can take these tentative steps on your pathway to destiny, and you can assume that you're going to do it badly. And that's really useful because you don't have to beat yourself up. It's pretty easy to do it badly. But the thing is, it's way better to do it badly than not to do it at all. And that's the continual message that echoes through these historical stories in Genesis. It's like, these are flawed people. They should have got the hell out of their house way before they did. And they go out and they stumble around in tyranny and famine and self-betrayal and violence. But it's a hell of a lot better than just rotting away at home. And that's great. So that's good. And so why is that? Well, okay, so you start your path and you think that you're heading, towards your star. And so you go in that direction. And then, because you're here, the world looks a particular way. But then when you move here, the world looks different. And you're different as a consequence of having made that voyage. And so what that means is that now that thing that glimmers in front of you is going to have shifted its location. Because you weren't very good at specifying it to begin with, and now that you're a little sharper and more focused than you were, it's going to reveal itself with more accuracy to you. And so then you have to take it's almost like a 180-degree reversal. But it isn't, because, you've gone this far, and that's a long ways to get that far. But that's a lot farther than you would be if you just stayed where you were waiting. And so it doesn't matter that you overshoot continually, because as you overshoot, even if you don't learn what you should have done, you're going to continually learn what you shouldn't keep doing. And if you learn enough about what you shouldn't keep doing, then that's tantamount at some point to learning at the same time what you should be doing. So it's okay. So it's like this. Now, what's cool about it, though, I think, is that as you progress, the degree of overshooting starts to decline, right? And that we know that there's nothing hypothetical about that. As you learn a new skill, like even to play a song on the piano, for example, you overshoot madly. You're making all sorts of mistakes to begin with, and then the mistakes, they disappear. There's a great TED Talk, I think it was, about this guy set up a really advanced computational recording system in his home and recorded every single utterance his young child made while learning to speak. And then he put together the child's attempts to say certain phonemes and put them in a list, and you can hear the child deviating madly to begin with, and then after hundreds and hundreds of repetitions, just zeroing right in on the exact phoneme. So, you might not know this, but when kids babble, because they start babbling when they're quite young, they babble every human phoneme, including all sorts of phonemes that adults can't say. And then they die into their language, so that after they learn, say, English, then there's all sorts of phonemes they can no longer hear or pronounce. But to begin with, it's all there, which is really quite interesting. But so as they learn a particular language, they zero in on the proper way to pronounce that, and their errors minimize. And every time you learn something, that's how it is. And that's really useful to know, too, because it means that it's okay to wander around stupidly before you fix your destination. Now, you see that echoed in Exodus, right? Because what happens is that the Egyptians, or the Hebrews, escape a tyranny, which is kind of whatever you do personally and psychologically when you escape from your previous set of stupidly held and ignorant and stubborn axioms. It's like, away from that tyranny. It's like, great, I freed myself from that. Well, then what? Well, you think, well, now I'm on the way. No, you're not. Now you're in the desert, where you wander around stupidly, and worship the wrong things until you finally organize yourself morally again and head in the proper direction. So that's worth knowing, too, because you think, well, I got rid of a lot of things, excess baggage that I didn't need in my life, and now everything's okay. It's like, no, it's not. You've got rid of a whole set of scaffolds that were keeping you in place, even though they were pathological. And now you have nothing. And nothing actually turns out to be better than something pathological, but you're still stuck with the problem of nothing. And that's exactly why Exodus is structured the way that it is. It's that you escape from a tyranny. It's, hooray, we're no longer slaves. Yeah, well, now you're nihilistic and lost. It's not necessarily an improvement. But it is it's also useful to know that, because you can also be deluded into the idea that, imagine that you're trying to become enlightened, which might mean to turn all those parts of you on that could be turned on. You think, well, that's just a linear pathway uphill. It's just from one success to another. No, it's not. It's like, here you are and you're not doing too badly. And the first step is a complete bloody catastrophe. It's worse. And then maybe you can pull yourself together and you hit a new plateau, and then that crumbles and shakes, and bang, it's worse again. And so, because part of the reason that people don't become enlightened is because it's punctuated by intermittent deserts, essentially, by intermittent catastrophes. And if you don't know that, well, then you're basically screwed, because you go ahead on your movement forward and you collapse and you think, well, that didn't work, I collapsed. It's like, no, that's par for the course. It's not indication that you failed, it's just indication that it's really hard. And that when you learn something, you also unlearn something. And the thing you unlearned is probably useful, and unlearning it actually is painful. Let's say if you have to get out of a bad relationship. It's like there isn't any relationship that's 100% bad. And so when you jump out of it, well, maybe you're in better shape, but you're still lonesome and disoriented, and you don't know what your past was, and you don't know what your present is, and you don't know what your future is. That's why people stay with the devil they know instead of, looking for the devil they don't know. So anyways, the fact that you're full of faults doesn't mean you have to stop. And thank God for that. That's a really useful thing. And the fact that you're full of faults doesn't mean that you can't learn. And so you can posit an ideal, and you're going to be wrong about it, but it doesn't matter, because what you're right about is positing the ideal and moving towards it. If the actual ideal isn't conceptualized perfectly, well, first, surprise, surprise, because what are you going to do that's perfect? So it doesn't matter that it's imperfect. It just matters that you do it and that you move forward. So that's really positive news as far as I'm concerned, because you can actually do that, right? You can do it badly. Anyone can do that. So that's useful. Okay, so if you were an efficient person, you would have just done that. But you're not. But who cares? You still end up in the same place. And maybe the trip is even more interesting. Who knows? Probably too interesting. The next best predictor of lifetime success is conscientiousness. Well, and of the two aspects of conscientiousness, say orderliness and industriousness, the better predictor is industriousness. So the question is, well, what can you do about your industriousness? And the answer to that is, well, that's kind of rough too, because there's a strong genetic component. But you can work on micro habits with regards to your conscientiousness. And I think the best micro habits, this is partly to do with this future authoring program processes, I think the best thing you can do with regards to your conscientiousness is to set up some aims for yourself, goals that you actually value. And the future authoring program helps people do that. And basically, it does a situational analysis it helps you do a situational analysis of your life more than a psychological analysis, I would say. And so the questions are something like, well, all right, you're going to have to put some effort into your life. And you need to be motivated to do that. And so what are the potential sources of motivation? Well, you could think about them in the big five manner. If you're extroverted, you want friends. If you're agreeable, you want an intimate relationship. If you're disagreeable, you want to win competitions. If you're open, you want to engage in creative activity. If you're high neuroticism, you want security. Okay, so those are all sources of potential motivation that you could draw on, that you could tailor to your own personality. But then there are dimensions that you want to consider your life across. And so we ask people about, well, if you could have your life the way you wanted it in 3 to 5 years, if you were taking care of yourself properly, what would you want from your friendships? What would you want from your intimate relationship? How would you like to structure your family? What do you want for your career? Well, how are you going to use your time outside of your job? And how are you going to regulate your mental and physical health, and maybe also your drug and alcohol use? Because that's a good place to auger down, because alcoholism, for example, wipes out, 5 to 10% of people. So you want to keep that under control. And then And then, so maybe, you develop a vision of what you would like your life to be, and that associates the goal. Well, once the goal is established, and then you break down the goal into micro processes that you can implement. The micro processes become rewarding in proportion, in relation to their causal association with the goal, and that tangles in your incentive reward system. We talked about the dopaminergic incentive reward system, and that's the thing that keeps you moving forward. And the way it works is that it works better if it produces positive emotion when it can see you moving towards a valued goal. Okay, well, what's the implication of that? Better have a valued goal, because otherwise you can't get any positive motivation working out. And so the more valuable the goal, in principle, the more the micro processes associated with that goal start to take on a positive charge. And so what that means is, well, you get up in the morning and you're excited about the day. You're ready to go. And so as far as I can tell, what you do is you specify your long-term ideal. Maybe you also specify a place you want to stay the hell away from so that you're terrified to fail as well as excited about succeeding, because that's also useful. You specify your goal. You do that in some sense as a unique individual. You want to specify goals that make you say, oh, if that could happen as a consequence of my efforts, it would clearly be worthwhile. Because the question always is, why do something? Because doing nothing is easy. You just sit there and you don't do anything. That's real easy. The question is, why would you ever do anything? And the answer to that has to be because you've determined by some means that it's worthwhile. And then the next question might be, well, where should you look for worthwhile things? And one would be, well, you could consult your own temperament. And the other would be, well, you kind of look at what it is that people accrue that's valuable across the lifespan. So you do a structural analysis of the subcomponents of human existence, and I already did that. You need a family, you need friends. You don't need to have all these things, but you better have most of them. Family, friends, career, educational goals, plans for, time outside of work, attention to your mental and physical health, etc. That's what life is about. And if you don't have any of those things, well, then all you've got left is misery and suffering. So that's a bad deal for you. So once you set up that goal structure, let's say, and that's really in many ways that's what you should be doing at university. That's exactly what you should be doing, is trying to figure out who it is that you're trying to be, right? And you aim at that, and then you use everything you learn as a means of building that person that you want to be. And I really mean want to be. I don't mean should be, even those things are going to overlap. And it's important to distinguish between those, because that's partly, and this is back down to the micro routine analysis. So as I was saying, well, you're going to try to make yourself more industrious. And this is back down to the micro routine analysis. So as I was saying, well, you're going to try to make yourself more industrious. Okay, number one, specify your damn goals, because how are you going to hit something if you don't know what it is? That isn't going to happen. And often people won't specify their goals too, because they don't like to specify conditions for failure. So if you keep yourself all vague and foggy, which is real easy, because that's just a matter of not doing as well, then you don't know when you fail. And people might say, well, I really don't want to know when I fail because that's painful. So I'll keep myself blind about when I fail. That's fine, except you'll fail all the time then. You just won't know it until you've failed so badly that you're done. And that can easily happen by the time you're 40. So I would recommend that you don't let that happen. So that's willful blindness, right? You could have known, but you chose not to. Okay, so once you get your goal structure set up, you think, okay, if I could have this life, it looks like that might be worth living, despite the fact that it's going to be, anxiety provoking and threatening, and there's going to be some suffering and loss involved in all of that. Obviously, the goal is to have a vision for your life such that, all things considered, that justifies your effort. Okay, so then what do? Well, then you turn down to the micro routines. It's like, okay, well, this is what I'm aiming for. How does that instantiate itself day to day, week to week, month to month? And that's where something like a schedule can be unbelievably useful. Google Calendar. It's like, make a damn schedule and stick to it. Okay, so what's the rule with a schedule? It's not a bloody prison. That's the first thing that people do wrong. They say, well, I don't like to follow a schedule. Well, it's like, well, what kind of schedule are you setting up? Well, I have to do this, then I have to do this, then I have to do this, and then I just go play video games, because who wants to do all these things that I have to do? It's like, wrong. Set the damn schedule up so that you have the day you want, That's the trick. It's like, okay, I've got tomorrow. If I was going to set it up so it was the best possible day I could have, practically speaking, what would it look like? Well, then you schedule that. And obviously there's a bit of responsibility that's going to go along with that, because if you have any sense, one of the things that you're going to insist upon is that at the end of the day, you're not in worse shape than you were than at the beginning of the day, right? Because that's a stupid day. If you have a bunch of those in a row, you just dig yourself a hole and then you bury yourself in it. It's like, sorry, that's just not a good strategy. It's a bad strategy. So maybe 20% of your day has to be responsibility and obligation, or maybe it's more than that, depending on how far behind you are. But even that, you can ask yourself, okay, well, I've got these responsibilities. I have to schedule the damn things in. What's the right ratio of responsibility to reward? And you can ask yourself that, just like you'd negotiate with someone who is working for you. It's like, okay, you got to work tomorrow. Okay, so I want you to work tomorrow. And you might say, okay, well, what are you going to do for me that makes it likely that I'll work for you? Well, you could ask yourself that, So maybe you do an hour of responsibility and then you play a video game for 15 minutes. I don't know, whatever turns your crank, man. But, you have to negotiate with yourself and not tyrannize yourself. Minutes, I don't know, whatever turns your crank, man. But, you have to negotiate with yourself and not tyrannize yourself. Like you're negotiating with someone that you care for, that you would like to be productive and have a good life. And that's how you make the schedule. It's like, and then you look at the day and you think, well, if I had that day, that'd be good. Great. And you're useless and horrible, so you'll probably only hit it with about 70% accuracy, but that beats the hell out of zero, right? And if you hit it even with 50% accuracy, another rule is, well, aim for 51% the next week, or 50.5% for God's sake, or because you're going to hit that position where things start to loop back positively and spiral you upward. And so that's one way that you can work on your conscientiousness, is plan a life you'd like to have. And you do that partly by referring to social norms. That's more or less rescuing your father from the belly of the whale. But the other way you do that is by having a little conversation with yourself about, as if you don't really know who you are, because you know what you're like. You won't do what you're told. You won't do what you tell yourself to do. You must have noticed that. It's like you're a bad employee and a worse boss. And both of those work, for you. You don't know what you want to do, and then when you tell yourself what to do, you don't do it anyways. You should fire yourself and find someone else to be. But my point is that you have to understand that you're not your own servant, so to speak. You're someone that you have to negotiate with, and you're someone that you want to present the opportunity of having a good life to. And that's hard for people because they don't like themselves very much. So, they're always like cracking the whip and then procrastinating, and cracking the whip and then procrastinating. And it's like, God, it's so boring and it's such a pathetic way of spending your time. And you know what that's like, because you probably waste like 6 hours a day. And I think we did an economic calculation about that a while back, right? Your time's probably worth $50 an hour, something like that. I mean, you're not getting paid that now, but you're young. And so this is investment time. And what you do now is going to multiply its effects in the future. So let's say it's $50 an hour, which is perfectly reasonable. So if you waste 6 hours a day, and you are, then you're wasting about $2,000 a week, or about $100,000 a year. So go ahead, but that's what it's costing you every hour. And you need to know what your damn time is worth. So let's say it's not $50, it's 30, whatever. Maybe it's 100. It's somewhere in that range. One of the things you should be asking yourself is, when you spend an hour, was that, what if I paid someone $50 to have had that hour? And if the answer is no, it's like, well, maybe you should do something else with your time. And it depends on whether or not you think that your time's worthwhile. But the funny thing about not assuming that is, if you assume your time isn't worthwhile, what happens is you don't just sit around sort of randomly in a state of responsibility-less bliss. What you do is you suffer existentially. And so that seems like a stupid solution.
And that was Jordan Peterson, and it's a title of it is Learn from Pain. Back in a minute. Thank you. This is Ron, your host, the only true conservative in the United States today, bidding adios to all the butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers out there, and reminding you that you're not neutral and that the government has no rights.